What's up, YouTube? This is the 82 podcast. So, this is a topic that I've been meaning to cover for about a day now. And I saw a great YouTube channel cover this topic. It's called Too Raw for TV. If you're not subscribed, go check it out. He makes a lot of great basketball content. Now, there's some journalists that are saying Gary Payton was the first defensive point guard. So, you got to understand, a lot of this younger generation of basketball reporters, they don't know what they're talking about in basketball history. And Gary Payton wasn't just a defensive point guard. I know earlier in his career, he didn't average as much points. A lot of that was because he had a lot of scorers on his team. But in those later Sonics years that he was playing there, like for 99, 2000, for example, he put up 24 points per game and 8.9 assists per game. So he wasn't just a defensive point guard. And another issue with this statement is you're not looking at all the great defensive point guards before him. You're spreading a misinformation that he's the first. Look at Walt Frazier, for example, in the 60s and 70s. Walt Frazier is one of the greatest defensive point guards of all time. And had the Defensive Player of the Year award existed in his time, you already know he would have been another point guard with that award. He probably would have been the first one to have that award, not Gary Payton. He was the type of dude to put up like 2-3 steals per game. And in his career, he was a 7-time All-Defense. And if you want to look at other great defensive point guards, look at Casey Jones from the 1960s Celtics teams. And he's a pure defensive point guard. It's not like he was scoring 20 points per game. He was like averaging like 8-9 points per game. But that was his role, to play good defense. Want to talk other good defensive point guards? What about Jerry West? A lot of people are starting to say nowadays Jerry West was a shooting guard. That's not true. He only played the shooting guard position for 2 years. Majority of his career, he was a point guard. And he was the type of guy to put up, although they only recorded steals for 1 year of his career, he put up 2.6 steals per game. So what does that tell you about what his prime would have been like? And he was a 5-time All-Defense. And keep in mind, they didn't keep track of all defensive teams until 68-69. That was when he was 30 years old. So how many defensive team selections does he have before that? Or look at Oscar Robertson, another great defensive point guard. Now, unfortunately, a lot of his defensive stats weren't kept track of at the time. They didn't keep track of steals until his last season too. But that doesn't diminish him as a defensive point guard. So the point of this video is a lot of this new age reporting is just mind-boggling stupid. They don't read their history. They don't know players before their time. And if you're calling yourself a basketball historian, you shouldn't take that lightly. You should be studying every aspect of the game, every generation, every era. The eras you don't like even, you got to study. Because the more misinformation is spread, the harder it is to disprove it. Because think about it like this. It's easier to convince someone. It's easier to trick someone than to convince someone that they've been tricked. You know, because if the narrative keeps getting repeated that Gary Payton's the first defensive point guard of all time, or Wilt Chamberlain only played against 5'6" midgets, eventually this narrative is going to be the consensus. And when you challenge somebody on this false narrative, they're going to look at you crazy. They may not even believe you. And most people don't put the time in to do research. So if you're a reporter, if you're an NBA historian, why aren't you doing your facts right? This is just lazy reporting. It's not fair to the overall audience because, like I said, most people don't do basketball research. It's not fair to them to be lied to. Quit being biased towards your era. Quit being biased towards the player you've seen. There's great players in every generation. Everybody contributed something. So that's my thoughts. Let me know what you think down below. Appreciate you watching.